In this week's edition of Shorts and Shells, where our senior editor Eric Edholm talks about a pair of NFC teams that had an opportunity to really gain some respect in Week 10, and both those teams lost. Let's start with the Atlanta Falcons, maybe the quietest 8-0 team in the history of the NFL. Thought they weren't getting the respect they deserved, and then they go into New Orleans. Could have been a big win for them. They fall to the Saints 31-27, which makes you think, Eric, that some of those questions people had about the Falcons may be true.
Well, there are only certain types of teams I think that can play with that idea of like gaining vengeance or proving people wrong or that sort of thing, and it just didn't seem like it was something this team needed to do. If anything, they may look back and say, all right, this loss woke us up, and this is the kind of thing that can turn your season back on track. Look, they're a good football team, but I think worrying about these trivial kind of things is not the thing you need to do at this point. Work on improving that rushing game. Work on improving that defense. Special teams haven't been a difference maker in recent games. So these are all things that I think they need to focus on more than trying to prove people wrong.
And when it comes to trying to prove people wrong, when you look at the Atlanta Falcons, they obviously want to do that come January, because that's where everyone doubts them, saying they haven't been able to win a playoff game, get off to a great start of the regular season. But the fact is, with this team, no one's really going to believe that they're for real until they win a playoff game.
Absolutely. You know, and you look at the Saints, for instance, everybody was doubting them, everyone was questioning them, and it took them so long to regain themselves. Now they've sort of gotten that confidence back. Now that all the talk about their offseason has kind of quieted down, they're able to get back and play some really good football. Week 10 was a great example of that. You know, the Falcons just need to refocus, I think, a little bit, and they'll be fine.
A team that we thought had gotten back on track was the Detroit Lions. A real rough start to the season, and playing well of late. They go play the Minnesota Vikings, who beat them earlier in the season. And really, Detroit was a favorite even in Minnesota, and they got off to a very slow start. Could not stop Adrian Peterson in this one, could not get the offense going. They lose 34-24 to a Vikings team that was unraveling. I mean, Eric, what does this say to you about the Detroit Lions?
Well, the Detroit Lions, like you said, I mean, they kind of got in a hole early and weren't able to answer the critics a little bit. Calvin Johnson got beat up, same as he did in the first matchup, and I think they were a little upset about that. Maybe looking to the whistles, looking to try to get these flags instead of worrying about playing their game. Defensively, they weren't great. Anytime you allow Christian Punter to get in the groove early and stay in that groove, I think you've got problems, because they held him in check in the first matchup. He hadn't been playing well recently. Punter has his best game in more than a month. That early post, I think, really kind of loosened him up. Lions weren't able to rattle him with a pass rush.
And these two teams are still behind the Bears and Packers in the division, but the way the last couple weeks had gone, we thought the Vikings would kind of regain that third spot in the division. The Vikings, that was kind of just a little blip on the radar. But now the way the Minnesota played on Sunday, can they maybe, I know they have a tough schedule going forward, but can they turn this into something? Does Detroit still have a chance? I guess the question, do either of these two teams still have a chance of maybe getting a second wild card out of the NFC North?
I think so, but I think, you know, both have to have the quarterback play be steady. You know, with Ponder, it's never going to be about huge plays here and there, but just not making the mistakes that he did in the last month or so. And with Stafford, I mean, getting back somewhere close to the level he played at last year. Calvin Johnson's banged up. We know that. He's playing hurt. His hand hurts him. His knee hurts him. He was throttled again today and still had a huge game in the process, but there have got to be other options out there to help balance things out a little bit.
Yeah, both these teams, as we said, they still have to kind of fight. They still have to jump two teams. They probably wish they were maybe in the AFC West.
Sure.
Unfortunately, they're in the NFC North. To check out more on those two games as well as the rest of Eric's Week 10 observations, be sure to read his Shorts and Shells column at our website, profootballweekly.com.